What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of the Blacklist podcast. I was going to post a different video where we watched some older matches to kind of like honor the journey that jiu-jitsu has gone through by watching some of the matches that really put jiu-jitsu on the map in this modern era, right? We were going to watch Gary Tonin versus Husamar Palhares, which at the time used to be considered the greatest match in jiu-jitsu history, debatably. But now there was something else that came up, and in reality, you know, keeping on brand with myself, people tend to find me more entertaining when I'm being critical or seeming angry or something like that. So I decided to pivot and make episode 2 more of a critique of this post that was made. So my boy Patrick, a black belt down here in the RGV, posted a repost of somebody else, and he says, "This might be the dumbest thing you read today. Been around the world twice, trained everywhere I went. Wouldn't have been possible if the sport wasn't watered down. Colored belts submit black belts all the time. We've seen it locally in recent competitions. This negative and extremely narrow mindset needs to change." Okay, so what is he referring to? He is referring to a post by Federico Tisi. I'm sorry if this person... I don't know this person, so I apologize if this person has a profound impact on the scene. But, and I don't know it. I don't mean any disrespect in that sense, but he is a teacher. It looks like he runs a gym in Milan, Italy. All right. He's let's see here. He's got a couple of stripes on that black belt. So the man's been around for a long time, right? The reason why I look up his page is because I think it's kind of important to get a grasp of where he's coming from. He obviously has come from a different generation than me. And I think it's important to kind of understand those things. All right. So let's look at the post. And I apologize if I got the name wrong. I'm not familiar with him or anything like that. If he ends up watching this video, just know I'm going to disagree with a number of things that is in this post. That doesn't mean that we don't get along or we don't see eye to eye on many other topics. But there is some stuff going on in this post that I personally, I don't really like it when I see these things, and I like to discuss it, talk about it, you know, put my thoughts out there, right? I was going to actually type a long dissertation in Patrick's post, but I felt like this kind of just worked better as a video. So let's dive in. Jiu-jitsu is losing its connection to the values and the philosophy of martial arts in general, and it's not a good thing. So let's stop right after that sentence. Losing its connection to the values and philosophy of martial arts in general. Really quick, we're going to ask ChatGPT, can you define for me the philosophies? Oh my God. Philosophies. God, why does this word always fuck me up? Philosophies and values of martial arts. Respect is shown to teachers, training partners, and opponents. Humility is valued over arrogance because even a master is always a student. The master is always a student. Now, that's something we like to say in martial arts, but I can tell you from being at probably a dozen different gyms over the span of 8 years, the amount of leave your ego at the door and all this other shit, it almost always ends up being bullshit. Because what those people mean who run their gyms and run their programs is that they want you to leave your ego at the door so that they don't have to leave theirs at the door. And that is an old school problem. Because these masters that are running these gyms today are not guys like me who have been training for 8 years. These are the guys running gyms are like 15, 20-year black belts, which I would consider at this point to be like the old guard. Right. So those experiences I've had anecdotally, and I'm sure other people would say they've had the same. I would be willing to bet that was mostly at the hands of people who have been on their throne for so long in their gym system that they are treated like a king, treated like a god. And then the second they are treated like a regular man, that feels like disrespect to them. So I actually think that's actually on the old guard. Balance and harmony. Many martial arts stress finding equilibrium between strength and softness, aggression, calm, body, and mind. I don't think that has changed. I think we're always striving to find those things, when to flip a switch and get something done without adrenaline dumping over emotions and things like that. So I would also say that this generation of people still maintain that. Philosophies like Taoism and Zen influence the idea of flowing with energy rather than fighting against it. As far as that goes, I think that will always be an issue for white, blue, and even purple belts and some brown belts, right? But mostly white and blue belts, right? Newer people who are trying to learn that lesson. But that is the point. So to be like an older guard and to say, well, this new generation hasn't figured it out yet. Well, I would say no shit. Obviously, your job actually as a leader and a black belt is to instill those lessons into that next generation. And that is, I would dare say, the whole point of what we're doing. I think we can all agree on that. So I think that kind of becomes a moot point, because at some point you were probably also a shithead white or blue belt trying to get in there and like rough people up and prove to yourself and your black belts that you are in fact physically capable and can submit people. Because that's what white belts are mostly trying to prove, that like, I don't even know if I could actually armbar a guy. That because they don't know, they've literally never done it. So that part of that goal is to figure out that you can, and then go to the next step of realizing that that is not necessarily the most important thing every single time you train. So that is the point of coaching, in my opinion. Continuous improvement. Kaizen, martial arts focus on lifelong learning, constant refinement, and self-development rather than perfection. Oh boy, now here's the thing, and I'm probably going to bring this up again. This generation is way, way more in tune with trying to perfect and grow and learn and get better and absorb knowledge and learn from as many differing voices and skills and styles as absolutely possible. And the reason I know this is because every single person has that long list of Instagram videos saved and YouTube videos that they've marked for watch later and all this other stuff, because they are so hungry to continue to grow. And I think this is more this generation, the current athletes that are still out there growing and learning right now. This generation, I think, wants it more than any other generation that has ever existed in martial arts, because they actually have the mechanism to pursue that much knowledge. Now, whether we can disagree all day long if having that mechanism and constantly going to that well and drinking is good, right? Because maybe your coach has a very fine-tuned plan for you. But let's be real. Even some of the best coaches on this fucking planet do not have a written idea or an actual solid concept of what they have planned for their most hungry students. It's literally just they show up every day, and then you show as the coach what you generally want to show, and you call it like that. You're good. You learn something, great, cool. But you're not actually teaching them like the connections necessarily, or where this concept of a move fits in other different moves, and how this rule set kind of governs other decisions. Most people aren't doing that, including the old guard. Your average gym is run by a coach walking in, looking at the board, if there's a marker board of like, what have they been doing this week? Maybe, I guess I kind of feel like that, right? So, and I would once again say that's not a new generation issue. That's an all generation issue, short of very particular people throughout all the generations. Like obviously John Danaher is probably one of the most developed systems in jiu-jitsu. He seems to have a very good idea. Even people that you might disagree with, like Saunders, he at least has a framework that he is working off of. But your average coach, even black belts, even old guard black belts who have like 4 or 5 fucking stripes, those guys are mostly winging it as well. They're teaching that one technique really well, though. They know a lot about that one technique. But as far as preparing for the future, having 3 months worth of lessons planned in advance, that's not happening most of the time. Let's be real. Honor and integrity. We'll leave it at this one because we're only on the first sentence of his post. Many arts carry a warrior's code, like Bushido in Japan, that values honesty, loyalty, and moral responsibility. Okay? Again, I would ask you where we fail here. There's always going to be disloyal human beings, créances, right? Like people fucking leaving your gym. And just because they leave your gym does not actually mean that they're a betrayer. They're actually a customer. And it was your job to make sure that they continuously see the value in the product that you are putting out on the market. And then the day that you lose them because they no longer see the value, or they get a better value from a different company, you lost them to capitalism, not to them being a betrayer of sorts. Okay. So first off, let's get that out of the way. People are 100% allowed to leave your gym and come back and eat crow for coming back. And they're going to feel bad, right? But it's your job to know that this is part of learning and growing. You, as a child, made plenty of mistakes before you became an intelligent adult. Just like many of your students, even if they're already adults, will sometimes pursue something that they think they want and then find out later that it was a mistake. Or they think they like a coach and find out that that coach is a sociopath and he actually just likes hurting people and they don't want to learn from that guy and it was a huge mistake. And this is the process of learning. You're fighting against the process that you were saying that you support. People have to be allowed to bounce away and go to a different gym and make a mistake and say, hey, actually, like for the first month, it was great. And then I really started getting hurt or disrespected by the people there. And it made me realize what you tried to tell me and how much that matters. And if you don't accept them coming back, then I would actually say you're worse than students. And now I'm not saying you, the person who wrote this post, agreed. Thanks, Chat GPT. Moving on to the next sentence. Okay. Nowadays, the tendency is of stripping an art for its parts to market it and then calling it progress. I actually, to a degree, agree with you there. 100%, right? Like, look at J-Flow. He is a judo, I don't know if he's actually a champion or if he just competed or whatever. And I think he was a coach for Ronda Rousey. So he has a very good pedigree within judo. And he is in the process of taking what he knows from judo and stripping it for parts and bringing it over to jiu-jitsu, because let's be real, jiu-jitsu is currently more in the zeitgeist and is a little bit more marketable. And there's probably more money and a pathway for success for him. But is his skills irrelevant? No, absolutely not. If you go try to do a jiu-jitsu match and you decide to stand against J-Flow, he's fucking you up, right? So that information is good. And frankly, jiu-jitsu, I think, should be the melting pot of grappling martial arts. If something is done in Sambo and it works, take it. If something is done in judo that works, take it. If something works in wrestling, take it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I feel like it is implied here that it is a bad thing. But I do agree with you. A lot of sports are being stripped and kind of like smashed together into like this modern day jujitsu, to the point to where some people call certain versions of jujitsu like wrestle jitsu and stuff like that, because it's such a blatant combination of keeping your wrestling skills but modifying it for the jiu-jitsu rule set, which just makes you like not necessarily good at jiu-jitsu and not necessarily good at wrestling either. It's just kind of this weird thing where you can kind of coexist in both worlds and maybe bring home some medals along the way. So in that point, I kind of agree, but not wholeheartedly. Most mats are turning into stages and forgetting they are altars. Well, that is the nature of social media. There's always going to be that. With great social media power comes great responsibility, and maybe it does kind of make jiu-jitsu feel a little bit more like showman-y than it used to. But I'll certainly agree with that. But I would then argue if it's necessarily a bad thing, right? And where in the middle ground does it exist between good and bad, and what positives can we gain from having more social media more social media presence for jiu-jitsu? Because a rising tide lifts all ships. The more popular Gordon Ryan becomes, the more people inherently become interested in your local gym, right? So the more he makes a scene out there and gets more eyes on him, the more he kind of spreads the good word of jiu-jitsu, which trickles down to all of our schools. Jiu-jitsu has forgot about gratitude. The gratitude for our teacher and for our partner who offers you their body to make you stronger. Again, I mean, I don't know what world you're rolling in, and especially if you own your own school, I don't know why you would be saying this, because if you own your own school, wouldn't you be setting a standard where people are force-fed gratitude very early to make sure that they understand how to be grateful towards their coaches and partners and stuff? Again, I just don't see how our generation would be any worse at being grateful than any other generation. I mean, my team has very, very tight connections with each other. We're all friends. We're all thankful to each other. We gush over each other every single fucking day. 80/20 is the same way, another local gym here. So it's like I've personally spent hours at all these places, and I've, especially at 80/20, those guys revere the head coach, Eric, greatly. Like they truly do value his guidance, his leadership. And these are like 20-year-olds that we're talking about. These aren't like 40-year-old men following another 40-year-old man. These are 20-year-olds who have seen the value in their leader, and they give praise to him for his leadership constantly. And Eric gives praise to his students for their hard work and their sacrifice constantly. So again, I don't know what environment this person is seen or the environment you guys exist in, but certainly in the environment that I seem to be around doesn't really have this problem. Now, in most cases, they're just a coach or an opponent to be filmed for the next highlight reel. Again, social media has its good side and its bad side. I would definitely agree with you there. But here's the thing. Social media is king when you're trying to get booked. If you have a large following, a social media presence, that means that most likely if you get booked for a fight, you will bring more eyes to that company. And this is what companies want, to the point to where Hollywood does this. If you don't have enough followers on Instagram and Twitter and all this other stuff, as an actor, you might not get a part that you were very qualified for because the studio wants you to have more of an audience to bring in because they're your fans. So if you have 1 million fans on Twitter, that's 1 million people that might buy tickets to your movie just because they like you. So social media is absolutely an extremely important part of this, for better or worse. Jiu-jitsu forgot about honor, about humbleness. Jiu-jitsu is forgetting to teach about feeling part of something bigger than ourselves, something precious that we are responsible to give to future generations. Jiu-jitsu forgot about honor. Strongly disagree. I think jiu-jitsu is more about honor than anything else. Now, certainly, there has been a rise in maybe like more ridiculous personalities due to two things: the popularity of MMA and ridiculous characters in MMA becoming kind of more of like a reality show. And people are starting to see the value in adopting a persona online for those purposes. And then obviously, like we talked about before, the rise of social media, which helps people get fights, helps people get noticed, and helps people get, more importantly, paid. And we can only milk so much time and money out of our active bodies before we all inevitably transition to being gym owners and community leaders and stuff like that. So, again, good with the bad. Jiu-jitsu is forgetting to teach about feeling part of something bigger than ourselves, something precious that we're responsible to give to future generations. Okay, because of YouTube and Instagram, there are so many people who have dedicated their lives to disseminating the information of jiu-jitsu as their primary goal and hobby. And because of this, it has trickled down and created even more jiu-jitsu nerds. Okay, let's look at less impressed, more involved. The Outlier Database. That guy, he's just a dude, like a nerd, a jiu-jitsu nerd who's just like sitting there rummaging through YouTube videos trying to decipher what other bigger names may not have taught yet and trying to make it palatable for other people. I would say there's so many jiu-jitsu channels out there, judo channels, sambo channels, wrestling channels, that I would actually extremely disagree with this point, because there is so much physical evidence that people actually do care about passing on information and leaving a better place for the next generation, because we are constantly actively doing it, which I could say that the old generation is not nearly doing as much. I can name a few off the top of my head, like Roy Dean has made a significant career over being an older generation guy, but making his name off of YouTube videos. Roy Harris, same thing. He is literally the highest ranked American in the world. And his whole thing was about spreading education, doing seminars, making videos, and all this other stuff. So, I mean, I could name 2 people off the top of my head really quickly, but I could name you 15 from the new generation. So numbers are not in your favor on that one. Also, the internet, as far as feeling a part of something bigger, I mean, YouTube, the internet, Reddit, all that stuff. Obviously, we get to be a worldwide community rather than just like an American community and a Brazilian community and a European community. We obviously all get to communicate with each other and learn from each other, to the point to where I was in a Discord and I learned from Mikey Musumeci. He yapped at me for like an hour and a half about how powerful it is to take notes about what you're doing. And I would have never got that if it weren't for the internet. So another strike, I think, against you that is a very strong strike. Jiu-jitsu is building a generation of better athletes. That's for sure. I agree with that. Of personas, kings of the 6-second clip, masters of their own personal brand. I mean, again, people need to make money. I don't know what to say about this. Like, yeah, you have to get out there. You have to make a brand. I mean, I'm running a gym, and here I am yapping about this stuff as well, in an attempt to make sure that I spread what I think is good information, but also to help the business. Not for, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think I'm sitting here trying to do good work and be respectful, but, it is what it is. But it's not building martial artists anymore. This would have to come down to what you think a martial artist is. I think anyone doing jiu-jitsu is a martial artist. You can split hairs on the difference between a comp jiu-jitsu athlete versus a martial artist jiu-jitsu athlete. Like, those guys might be different in your mind. I don't know what your personal beliefs on that, but like, obviously things like ADCC, CJI, IBJJF, they are bigger than they have ever been because we want to build more athletes. And maybe that's the hair you're splitting. It's like, yeah, they're athletes, they're not martial artists. Okay, well, I'm not going to argue over that, but I would say that these athletes are martial artists. They are fighting. The educational contribution we are leaving behind is very small. I already kind of argued against that, so I won't stick on that fight, but obviously I'll reiterate, I think you're very wrong on that point. Jiu-jitsu nowadays is pretty much about teaching how to win a medal, to build a following, but not a sense of belonging. Again, I think this is a self-report, right? Because I have a brand new gym that has like 40 members in it. And I can tell you, in that community, those 40 people, we're pretty damn close. We talk to each other every damn day in the group chat. We train with each other. We go to competitions together. We eat meals together. We do special events at the gym together. So if you feel like there is a sense, lacking a sense of belonging, then I would say, especially if you run your own gym, that might be falling on you and your staff. Because anytime I feel like I haven't seen the guys or spent time with them, I use that as a reason to come up with an event, right? Like, we had game night the other day where like a bunch of jiu-jitsu people just showed up and we played Catan together and let the kids like wrestle on the mats and stuff like that. So like, I don't know. All I'm saying is it's really easy to run special events for your community. And again, with the internet, I think I feel more connected to jiu-jitsu than I think I would have 15, 20 years ago, because I can literally message my hero. Like, whatever jiu-jitsu. I actually did it earlier this week, where like I've been trying to get an interview with one of my favorite athletes of the last couple of years, and I wouldn't be able to reach out and touch base with that person if it weren't for social media. So I actually, once again, very strongly disagree here. I feel more like I belong in jiu-jitsu than any other sport I've ever experienced. And when the last camera flash fades and the sponsors move on to the next champion, what's left isn't a warrior. It's just a hollowed out mannequin left alone in the dark on the mat. Again, what if you're creating a culture where the only reason people follow you is because you are a continuous champion? Well, first off, that information never gets old, right? So if you became a champion and people followed you because of that, and then all of a sudden your gym just like dies and you're the last guy on the mat, I would once again point the finger at the person who let their community fall flat, all because they were just like, how do you find that many people who are just following you because you are actively winning? Because once you've already done those things, you just move on to focusing on helping the next guy do what you did. And then anyone that walks through the doors will see that next guy as the guy. But then you get to evolve into a new role within your own community of like, yeah, I'm not the guy anymore, but I'm going to make this guy the guy and this girl the girl. And we are going to continue this lineage, right? Because isn't lineage important? Isn't that so? So to me, it seems like this is more of like a fear maybe you have of yourself and your own journey. Maybe you didn't live up to your own expectations, or maybe you did and those days are past. And maybe you're starting to feel like, man, I kind of miss when people looked at me with the same reverence as they look at that purple belt who trains 2 times a day, who lifts, who doesn't even have like a real job, but they're living with their parents and they get to be here all the time. And they're just a nightmare to roll with on the mat. I miss being looked at like that. That's what that kind of reads like to me. And again, maybe I'm projecting, maybe I don't know why you're saying this, but I just don't see a world where gyms are shutting down all the time and all these old guard guys are just left there because everyone left them. I mean, if you're giving out, purple, brown, and black belts, a lot of those people aren't going to leave you unless you did something really fucked up at that point, or you're making really annoying decisions that aren't for the betterment of your community. Because if you're constantly working with them in mind, those purple, brown, and blacks are very unlikely to leave you. But the white and the blue belts, they come and go, right? Like there's a fucking spinning door of people coming in and out of gyms. But you don't worry about those white belts. But eventually some of those white belts will turn into blue belts, and those blue belts will turn into purple belts. And yes, those numbers diminish, but that is how it works. Not everyone can dedicate 15 years of their lives to learning jiu-jitsu, but a lot of people can dedicate 2 or 3. And then they get their blue belt, and then the blue belt blues hits, and it is what it is. And I don't think that has been different between this generation and the last generation or any previous generations. People get fucking tired. People get hurt. People get their fucking egos bruised. And it doesn't matter what, if it's the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, there's more people on this planet that have bruised egos than not. And it's just the way things go. Some people need to move to a gym where they're the big dick. And other people want to go to a gym where they're getting their ass whooped because they feel like they're progressing. It's all comes down to personal preference and the gym doing the best job they can to make a welcoming environment for as many people as they want to have in. All right. For me, jiu-jitsu is and will always be, first of all, a martial art and a powerful tool for self-development, not just a sport to win medals or just a form of entertainment for someone's free time. Sure. Okay. You can say that it's not entertainment. I would certainly to some degree agree with you because, man, most professional jiu-jitsu matches fucking are boring. And it's really hard to say that this is entertainment. It's not entertainment. But I do agree with you that when I watch a match, I'm not necessarily watching a match to be entertained. I personally am watching a match to see the application of jiu-jitsu, see how people are doing, see how people are progressing. But I would certainly agree that jiu-jitsu is not particularly entertaining. And the only reason I even watch it is because either A, my friends are competing and I want to support them, or B, I want to learn something. It's not just a sport to win medals. I agree. But the thing is if somebody walks into your gym with the pure focus as they walk in as a white belt, keeping in mind, a white belt is the lowest state of consciousness a human being will be in martial arts. They walk in just fresh off the street. Of course, their desire is to win medals and be a champion at first. Of course it is. And of course, for people who are aspiring to have a career, the only real way you make a true career in jiu-jitsu is one of two ways. You either win everything or you open a gym and get reoccurring income for yourself. Those are like right now the two major ways that your average person can ascend in jiu-jitsu. Now, yes, there are like instructionals and other stuff like that, but to get an instructional deal, you got to be a big name or else you're just wasting your time recording footage, right? Like you have to have something else to back you up, whether that's a successful gym or a successful career. And back to what I was saying, as the white belt walking in off the street, yes, they're going to want to be a champion. That makes sense. But then you win them over time. Your character as a leader, as a black belt, helps them learn that, yes, in fact, that medal that you cherish so much isn't as important as you thought it was, because in a few years, it will just be a distant memory and a lot of hard work that doesn't change where you might be in 10 years necessarily, right? It doesn't make you a better person. The happiness you get from it doesn't stick. It doesn't stay with you forever, right? It just becomes a faded memory like anything else. And so I do agree in that sense that there is a wisdom there. But once again, I would say the onus is on you to instill that into your white belts. And if people are getting to purple belt, brown belt, and black belt underneath you, and still having the sensation of the only thing that matters in the world is a medal, then once again, I would say it was a failure of leadership to instill that feeling that can grant us kind of like happiness long term, which as I agreed with you just a few minutes ago, is not medals. I 100% agree with you. Medals will not grant you long-term happiness most of the time, unless you're a fucking egomaniac. But that's your job as the adult in the room, as the parent, as the leader, as the patriarch or matriarch of your gym. It is your job to slowly over time instill the wisdom that you value so well in all your little baby white belts and all your little baby blue belts and all your up and coming purple belts. It is on you, not them, to know what they don't know. I strongly believe that my mission as a teacher is to promote this vision and practice and to leave the circus to the clowns. I will never disagree with you on that. Every single gym is a walled garden. So if you created your gym and this is what you want for your people and you have a very clear vision of what that is, I would never walk into your gym and say, you're wrong. You earned it. You created your gym. You worked hard. You filed your LLC. You bought the mats. You put your time in to become a black belt and to learn enough stuff to where you could teach year round and not get bored doing it for years and years and years. And you also created that community and you gave people a jumping off point. All those things are your victory and you earned it. I don't think anyone in the right mind would ever take that from you. So with that, I strongly agree with you. Sure, whatever. If you want to create an environment where you maybe don't really care about competing or medals, then that is your right. You know, the argument that most people will make was there's a clear separation between your recreational black belts and your competitive black belts who have focused on applying their skills against other equivalent opponents and doing it under duress. Pinning a guy who knows how to escape and then winning a gold medal at Worlds, like that would signify a greater jump in skill than your average recreational person who those recreational people are mostly fighting white belts at their local gyms. The skill gap will be obvious and different. And if you are all about skill acquisition, then yeah, you should 100% compete. But if you are just a dad with 2 kids and a job, and you just want to feel like you have somewhere to go at the end of the day and get away and spend some time by yourself, or feel like you're getting strong or sweating out the toxins or whatever, there's nothing wrong with being a recreational black belt in that path either. But just know that the acquisition of skills is in favor of those who compete. Always will be, unless you're just like a fucking freak of nature. But that makes up the totality of a statement. Again, no disrespect. I apologize that I'm not familiar with him. I'm sure he's a great leader and smart guy. I just saw this and felt like I disagreed with a solid 50 to 60% of what was said, and thought, hey, this looks like a great opportunity for episode 2 of the Blacklist. And, you know, I hope everything I said makes sense and didn't come off as just me being disrespectful or anything like that. That was not my intention. But I hope we had a good discussion. Hope you guys maybe picked up some ideas. Maybe you guys have some contrasting ideas and you can argue with me down in the comments. All of that's cool. Hope you guys enjoy the video. See you guys for episode 3 whenever I feel like doing it. Have a good one. See you guys.